Just a few of the reasons more than 80 million Americans depend on AM radio each month. And did you know AM radio is the backbone of the emergency alert system? It's reliable, free, and public safety depends on it. Text AM to 52886 and tell Congress we need AM radio in cars.
Message and data rates may apply. You may receive up to 4 messages a month, and you may text STOP to stop.
This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
9 minutes after 7 o'clock is news time on this Wednesday. Top of the morning from the newsroom of Regional Radio and DeWittDailyNews.com. I'm Seth Lawrence with this expanded local newscast. Brought to you by Baum Chevrolet Buick in Clinton, your Silverado headquarters, and the morning show streams to Facebook and YouTube. Brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. A few weeks ago, longtime Clinton Police Chief Mike Reidy passed away, and his successor is remembering the man he describes as a mentor and father figure. On the WHOW Morning Show Wednesday, Clinton Police Chief Ben Lowers called Chief Reidy the epitome of professionalism and class.
The epitome of professionalism and class. And you know what? He was a great boss. He was a phenomenal police officer and police administrator. But more than anything, Seth, he was a great friend. He was a friend to all of us. He was a very close friend of mine, a great mentor, essentially a father figure, and he's going to be missed dearly. You know, certainly an untimely and unexpected passing, and that's going to be felt broad and wide. You know, he was. I can't say enough good about him. I worked under him for 14 years. Here with the department, and he was very good to me. He was very good to everyone, very fair, just as I said, kind of the epitome of professionalism and class, and a wonderful family.
Chief Lowers learned how to be a fair leader and felt Chief Reidy was patient and calm even in the face of adversity.
Fairness and leadership, you know, he was motivational. He was patient. He was calm. He didn't get rattled. You know, he just had that. He was just a wise man, and, you know, took each thing in stride. You know, I mean, he certainly endured some challenges in his career, obviously, as we all do, but I don't know, he just handled everything with grace, I felt like. You know, many things, you know, he was a teacher, you know, he was a mentor, he was a teacher, he was a motivator. He was just a great guy.
Chief Lowers recalls the time as a young officer, Chief Reidy got him hyped up for a stakeout, but what he walked into, he could never have expected.
Very early in my career. When I say early, I mean within the first couple weeks of working for Chief Reidy. I started in early January. My birthday happens to be in late January, and Chief Reidy called me himself, literally within 2 weeks of my coming to work for the police department. He called me himself in to assist with a kind of a high-profile drug surveillance operation is what he described. And I have to tell you, as a young police officer, I was on cloud nine. I mean, the chief himself called me and is including me in on some big detail they're working, you know. It was obviously wintertime. I was to be set outside to do some outdoor surveillance and being an outdoorsman and a hunter, you know, dress appropriate, camouflage, you know, your winter hunting clothes. And so I came in, you know, dressed as instructed. I mean, I listened to every detail. I mean, he had me completely on edge, you know. And he insisted that I also, I mean, I could not be detected. And so I completely camouflaged out, all but a ghillie suit, and he wanted me to paint my face. And lo and behold, he delivered me to a surprise birthday party rather than this high-profile drug surveillance operation. And so there I arrived at my surprise birthday party, face painted and everything else, and he just thought that was hilarious. And I thought then, you know, I like a good prank, and I have met my match, but game on, Chief.
Chief Reidy had been retired for 10 years before his passing, and Chief Lowers remembers Chief Reidy as a family man who was very active in the community. Reidy was the chief of police in Chenoa, Wiscasset, Maine, and retired from the Clinton Police Department. He went to Bloomington Central Catholic High School and Western Illinois University. He was a member of St. Mary's Catholic Church in Bloomington and Catholic Church of the Little Flower in Springfield. Chief Reidy was 69. Put June 1st on your calendars for the return of a long-running event in rural DeWitt County. Dr. Mark Hobby had participated in the Tour DeWitt bike ride since he came to Clinton in 2016, and on the WHOW morning show Wednesday told Regional Radio when the event got called off at the last minute last year, he reached out to find out if there was anything he could do to help make it happen again in 2024. It wasn't until earlier this year he finally heard back on that inquiry.
So I've ridden in it in the past several times. I'm not sure when it started. I moved here in 2016, and I've ridden in it almost every year that it happened during that time. I've ridden in a lot of bike rides. I've always enjoyed doing it, but I've never been part of organizing them. Last year it got canceled. I wasn't sure why. I think it was, I want to say it was about a month out. They announced it was canceled, didn't know why or anything. So I had reached out to the chamber and didn't hear anything back until this March. And I just reached out asking if there's anything I could do to help. I'd like to help do what I can to help make it happen, because I think it's a really great thing. So I ended up having Kurt Holman reach out to me, and met with him and Janice Peterson from the Chamber of Commerce and Steve Lobb, who was the previous organizer, and decided to basically be the new organizer, director, and just learning everything as I go.
Hobby says it took a little bit, but he's got momentum on his side now. They've settled on a date of June 1st, and the ride will originate from Weldon Springs State Park with 4 different rides for participants.
I got hung up on it early because I've never done anything like this before, so I'm learning as I go. But I learned the biggest thing with one of these things is just asking for a lot of help, and I'm not generally great at that. So, well, that's a great question. I wasn't even sure. So I decided, but then when I sat down and thought about it, I decided that the first thing would be to pick a location and a date. The previous date was always the last Saturday in June, which I decided to change. In retrospect, maybe I shouldn't have, because I just should have changed as few things as possible. But at this point, we're committed to it. But I changed it. My rationale was that I wanted it to be a little cooler. I remember it being really hot in the afternoon on a lot of those rides. And I'd heard from the previous organizer and some other people that, people have gotten overheated and had to be, had to stop and have someone take them back, and figured it'd be less likely June 1st. And then the big one for me was the resurfacing of country roads. So that's not really scheduled or predictable in any way, other than I know that they don't start that until mid-June. So that could be really a huge inconvenience if you have like a 10-mile stretch of your route that has fresh gravel on it. It's really unpleasant to ride on. There's not a lot of easy rerouting that, unless you're adding 5 or 10 miles, which people aren't necessarily wanting to do that. So I want to just minimize any kind of barriers like that. So that's why I chose that date. Plus, it's always going to be the weekend after Memorial Day, which I thought would just be consistent and something that maybe people likely be in town if they were traveling for Memorial Day. They probably wouldn't be traveling the next weekend. Those were kind of my rationale for that. So yeah, it's going to start at Weldon Springs, which I didn't know this, but I saw on a Facebook post, somebody replied to it. I guess that's where it used to start, like back when it originally started, back in the 90s. I didn't even know how far back the ride went. There's going to be 4 different distances. There's a 9-mile, 25-mile, 42, and 62. The 9 miles more geared to kind of more local people that just want to go for a short ride, someone who's not like an avid cyclist, but just wants to do kind of a family easy ride. So it basically just goes from Weldon Springs to downtown Clinton and right back. And then the other ones go along kind of the same route, but obviously the longer ones go longer, and the longest one goes out to Farmer City and around the lake and back.
As the event gets closer, Hobby needs volunteers. He says to make an event like this happen, volunteers are essential because of what goes into having an enjoyable ride for participants.
Riding in these rides, you don't appreciate how many volunteers are needed for something like this. It's really it's a big operation. So you have the registration table. So you need several people to do that. So that's just registering the riders there. Even if they register online, you need to check them in and make sure they've paid, have them sign waivers, all that kind of stuff. So we have 4 people that are signed up to do that, which should be the right amount. We have several rest stops along the way, so about every 10 to 15 miles throughout each route. So we have 5 rest stops total, and we need minimum 1 person at each one of those, ideally 2, just because if you're by yourself, that's kind of a boring day, and 2 people can just be more effective with it. They can each do different things and help in a different way. So that's one of the biggest things. And then the kind of the toughest one is those support and gear drivers, like I talked about. So that's people driving around the route with a vehicle big enough to hold bicycles, so that if someone has a mechanical injury on their, or a mechanical problem on their bike, or an injury, or if they're just, tired and can't go anymore. Some people do these rides and they haven't ridden a ton, and they go for 42 miles and they just realize that was a little too long. If you're not used to doing that a lot, it can be tough. And that's what those people are there for, just to help with anything like that. And they'll keep like a bike pump to help, if somebody's got a low tire or something like that. And we need really a minimum of 3 of those. I will probably end up being one of those just by default, but I would like to have, 3 separate from me, just because I will probably be needed at a lot of different places, and making sure that all those rest stops are stocked, and that if we're running low on things, that we're staying on top of that. So it is quite a bit of volunteer help needed, and that's kind of the biggest thing where I'm at right now, is working on that.
The tour DeWitt evolved into a fundraiser for local charities, and Hobby has not decided on where the proceeds for this event will go, but he hopes to tie it to getting volunteers for the event.
Yeah, so in the past it's been for Macon County CASA, which is an advocacy program for abused or neglected children, which is an awesome cause. We haven't decided exactly what it's going to be for this year. It'll be some kind of local charity. That one would be great. The main thing I'm doing is I'm trying to utilize any volunteers I can get from organizations. And if it ends up being kind of if you can provide volunteers and part of the proceeds will go towards that organization, then I want to keep it open for that. So we haven't decided exactly what it will be, but it will be really good causes, local charities or nonprofit organizations.
If you're an individual or group interested in volunteering for this year's Tour DeWitt bike ride, contact Hobby by call or text at 217-313-6718. That's 217-313-6718. Or you can email him to mahobby, that's HOBBIE 89@gmail.com. Again, registration for this year's bike ride is underway. Visit tourdewitt.weebly.com to register. Register by June 17th, and it gets you a t-shirt for the event. News time is 20 minutes after 7 o'clock on this Thursday. Plenty more coming your way next on The Morning Show.
This is Scott Baum at Baum Chevrolet Buick here in Clinton. We believe in putting customers first. That's how we started, and it's why we go the extra mile for our customers. Looking for a new or used vehicle? We have transparent pricing for new and used cars, trucks, SUVs, and crossovers. See all our pricing and pictures online at your convenience. Or come in and visit our full-service team today at Clinton or Farmer City. BaumChevyBuick.com. Right from the start.
News time is 21 minutes after 7 o'clock on this Thursday. Again, I'm Seth Lawrence with you folks today for this expanded local newscast. The Taylorville Fire Department responded to a house fire on Mark Lane in Taylorville in the Bertonetti area Tuesday night. Multiple crews responded to the blaze that saw massive damage in the back of the house. Everyone was okay, and 2 dogs were rescued as well. Crews continued to work on fixing hot spots throughout a good portion of the evening. An Illinois lawmaker wants to renew an affordable connectivity program after its expiration earlier this spring. The ACP program ensures that households receive broadband internet at a discount and a one-time $100 discount to purchase a laptop. However, the program expired at the end of April. Congressman Eric Sorensen wants his counterparts to renew the program.
What happened here at the end of April should never have happened, because 1 in 5 families in our district alone, 21%, need the ACP, have been using it. And so, I met 2 veterans just recently last week, and they came to me and we talked about how important the service was so that they connected to their VA for their health care. The internet service is a lifeline. And so we need to make sure that it extended. And I have the ACP Expansion Act. And so I'm urging Speaker Johnson to bring this to the floor for a vote. It's not just a Democratic or a Republican thing. It affects a lot of people.
The ACP is limited to 1 monthly service discount and only provides help to eligible households. And again, it expired at the end of April. More active spring weather is on the way for Illinois. DTN ag meteorologist John Baranick says more rain is in the picture.
Well, now here coming up for this weekend, we're going to split the jet stream, so we'll be kind of more like an El Nino pattern. But both the northern and southern ends of this jet stream look like they're going to have storm systems moving through. So, we get a little burst of cooler weather to come through later this week behind that second storm. And in that, we could see some showers here Friday into Saturday, mostly for the northern portions of the state, but, it could happen just about anywhere. And then that northern jet stream really stays active. We get a front moving through on Monday. It's probably got some showers and thunderstorms moving through with it. We got another one that's probably coming up for Wednesday into Thursday. And then there's another system lining up behind that for like Friday into Saturday. So, the timing is going to change probably on some of these systems, but it just bing, bing, bing. We got more little things coming through. I think the good news with after Thursday, though, is that these systems that come through afterwards don't have a lot of access to moisture. They got a little bit, it's still springtime and there's a bunch of kind of soil moisture out there already to kind of feed these a little bit. But, when these systems are coming mostly from the northwest, they don't have a ton of moisture with it. That kind of stays towards the Gulf of Mexico. So, I think that leads us to at least some more isolated showers moving through instead of, this widespread areas of heavy rain and thunderstorms. But where these overlap, that's going to mean that people can't get into their fields, and that's going to be somewhere in the state. There's going to be some though that I think luck out and don't see a ton of rain out of it, and might find some windows here and there to go in. But yeah, it's still an active pattern here through the middle of May.
The latest USDA planting progress report has 3,200 of Illinois' corn crop in the ground, with 31% of the state's soybean crop also planted. Atmospheric conditions are behind what was a significant April concerning tornado count in the U.S., just as the peak of our nation's tornado season takes place.
1 month down, 2 more to go.
April, May, and June represents the peak of the U.S. severe weather season. That is the time of year where we see our greatest numbers of not only isolated tornadoes, but also significant or severe thunderstorm winds and large hail.
USDA meteorologist Brad Rippey says this past April illustrated that significant upturn in tornadic activity after a relatively quiet first 3 months of 2024.
Given the fact that we saw a mild winter and a general lack of extreme cold, it's not really a surprise when you add to that the fact that we've had a very active El Nino-related storm track heading into spring, that we would have an early peak of that severe weather season.
With the last week of April particularly active tornado-wise.
If you look at April of 2024, the preliminary number coming in from the National Weather Service Storm Prediction Center indicates that we saw 373 tornadoes. A lot of them occurring right at the end of the month, either the 25th through the 28th or the 30th. But we did see some earlier outbreaks that occurred between April 1st and 2nd, the 9th through the 11th, and the 15th through the 18th.
In terms of how this past April measures with prior years regarding tornado counts.
In the National Weather Service, they use a 30-year average. So if you look at the latest 30-year period that we have the records for, 1991 to 2020, the average number of tornadoes across the United States for the month of April is just 193. So we were almost double that 30-year average total with our account of 373 for April 2024.
Rippey says in the 21st century, there was only one April recording more tornadoes than this year.
That was the historic and deadly 2011, a year where we saw more than 550 U.S. tornado-related fatalities through the course of the year. That April featured an all-time record 817 tornadoes across the United States, hopefully a number that we'll never approach again. But again, to put that in perspective, this year's 373, if that number holds up, would rank as the number 2 in the 21st century.
He adds the early peak to and increased activity in this year's tornado season lent itself to climatic conditions in April.
A lot of energy coming in from the Pacific. It has been entering the country through the west or the northwest primarily. And then as those systems work their way across the Great Plains, we have a very nice temperature gradient where the storms can work with the cool air to the north, the warm, humid air coming in from the Gulf of Mexico and the Atlantic. And with a lot of the dynamics there, it doesn't take much of a spark to get these big storms rolling on a daily basis, with the activity peaking in the afternoon and evening and lasting into the overnight hours.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
News time is 28 minutes after 7 o'clock on this Thursday. Coverage of news is brought to you by Baum Chevrolet Buick in Clinton, your Silverado headquarters, and the morning show streams to Facebook and YouTube. Brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. We come up on 7:30 on this Thursday. We'll take a look at local sports coming your way next. Clinton, a big win over Monticello on the baseball diamond yesterday. It was a 9-inning marathon. Find out how it ended coming up in sports, and hear from first-year Maroons coach Nate Ennis as well as a part of that story. Other high school baseball finals last night. Lincoln blanked Pleasant Plains, the Sangamo Conference champs, 6-0 yesterday. Mount Pulaski finishes a game that was suspended last week due to weather, and Normal Community, Normal West winners yesterday in high school baseball. Normal Community wraps up the Big 12 Conference Championship, while Monticello gets a big win on the softball diamond as well. Those stories in sports coming your way next here on WHOW, streaming live online all the time at DeWittDailyNews.com. Network News is now.
Take a 2-0 lead in their Eastern Conference semifinal series. swept the Cardinals was in April 2007. New York won the series' first two